In this lesson, I'm going to show you the first step to developing complete freedom of movement on the fretboard so that you can break out of memorized scale drawings and truly express your own musical ideas anywhere on the fretboard. You're going to learn to visualize what I call the unbroken chain of half steps in any region on your guitar neck. And by this, I just mean all the notes of our musical system. You could think of our entire musical system as one long, unbroken chain of half steps that extends out infinitely in both directions. And this is like the musical terrain or landscape that underlies everything we're going to play in the future. And you could think of it almost like a blank canvas. And in the future, you're going to learn how to paint any musical shape you want anywhere on this canvas. And so the first step is just to learn to see this musical landscape for yourself and to start to get comfortable moving around it. And the way that we do that is with an exercise called cloud. And so first I'll show you what the cloud concept is, and then we'll look at how we practice the exercise. So let's get started. What we're going to do is learn to see this complete musical landscape, this unbroken chain of half steps going across all 6 strings of the guitar in any region on the fretboard. And this is what I call the cloud. And what I'm going to show you works everywhere on the fretboard. So no matter where you place your left hand on the fretboard, this cloud of notes always looks the same. And so we can just choose any random place to build the exercise. I'm going to choose the 3rd fret. And so the first note I'm going to play is at the 3rd fret of the low E string, this note we call G. And I'm going to play that with my index finger. And now we're just going to walk up the frets of this string. This is what the unbroken chain of half steps looks like on any string on your guitar. It's just the frets going up that string. So after playing with our index finger, we'll play with our middle finger, then our ring finger, and then our pinky finger. And now we actually need to play 5 notes on this string before we can move on. So what we're going to do next is shift up 1 fret and play this 5th note with the pinky finger as well. But then, as soon as we're done playing this 5th note, we want to immediately get back into our home position. So we'll play the 4th note with the pinky finger, and then we can walk down the other fingers until we get back down to our starting note. So let's just play these 5 notes together again. Index, middle, ring, pinky. Now we'll shift up with the pinky, and we'll immediately shift back with the pinky. Ring, middle, and index. The reason why it's important to shift back into our home position as soon as we have the opportunity is because we don't want to get confused about where we're actually building the cloud. And in this example, we said that we're building the cloud here at the 3rd fret. And so our index finger is going to be aligned to that 3rd fret for the whole exercise. There may be moments when we choose to temporarily shift up a fret to reach that 5th note with our pinky. But then as soon as we have the chance, we always want to shift back down into our home position where we're building the cloud. And in fact, in my book, I didn't even describe that as a shift. What I suggested that people do is to actually stretch for that 5th note. So now your index finger literally never even moves. It's always locked to that 3rd fret. And whenever you need to reach up for that 5th note on any given string, we're going to open our hand and stretch for it, which is a very uncomfortable stretch. And the reason why I did that is because in a book, it's very easy to get confused and kind of lose sight of what you're doing. And so it's just a simpler way to understand the exercise. But now that we can do the exercise together in the form of video lessons, we can be a little bit more liberal and we can adopt a much more elegant fingering, which is to shift up when we need that 5th note and then shift back into our original position as soon as we're done with it. So let's move on. After playing these 5 notes on the low E string, index, middle, ring, pinky, then shifting up with the pinky. The very next note we're going to play is to shift back into our home position and play the note under our index finger on the A string. So let's just experience that a couple times. Index, middle, ring, pinky. Shift up with the pinky, shift back, and play with the index. And this is how we connect these 2 strings in this musical landscape that we're building. This time, let's go ascending and descending, starting at the bottom. Index, middle, ring, pinky, shifting up with the pinky, shifting back, and playing with the index on the A string. And then descending, we'll start with this note under our index finger on the A string. And And now the very first thing we're going to do is to shift up and play that 5th note on the E string with our pinky. And then remember, as soon as we have the opportunity, we want to shift back into our home position. So we'll play the 4th note with our pinky as well. And then ring finger, middle finger, index. And let's just do that again. Index, middle, ring, pinky. Shifting up with the pinky, shifting back, index. Descending, index, shift up with the pinky, shift back with the pinky. Then ring finger, middle finger, and index. Let's move on. The A string also has 5 notes. And so we'll play the A string exactly the same way we played the E string. We'll play with our index, middle, ring, pinky. Then we'll shift up with the pinky, then we'll shift back and play with our index on the D string. And now the D string also has 5 notes. So again, we'll play it in the exact same way. Index, middle, ring, pinky. We'll shift up with the pinky and we'll shift back. We'll play with the index on the G string. And now the G string is the only string on the guitar that doesn't have 5 notes on it. Because of the irregular tuning of the guitar, on the G string we only need to play 4 notes. And what this means is that there will never be any shifting on the G string. So starting with this note under our index finger on the G string, we're just going to play index, then middle, then ring, and then pinky, and then we're going to pass directly to the B string with our index finger. Okay, so there are only 4 notes on the G string. We have index, middle, ring finger, pinky, and then directly index finger on the B string. And then the highest 2 strings are normal strings again. So these are just like the lowest strings on your guitar. We'll play 5 notes on each one. So we'll play index, middle, ring, pinky, then we'll shift up with the pinky, then we'll shift back into our home position and play index, middle, ring, pinky, and then I would shift up for this 5th note on the high E string as well, just to complete the drawing. And so notice that every string on your guitar has 5 notes on it except for the G string that only has 4 notes. And so let's just review that from the bottom to the top and then descending again. Starting at the very bottom, index, middle, ring, pinky, then we'll shift up, then we'll shift back. Index, middle, ring, pinky, we'll shift up and we'll shift back. Index, middle, ring, pinky. We'll shift up and we'll shift back. Now we're on the G string, so we'll just play index, middle, ring, pinky, and we'll pass directly to the B string with no shifting. And then middle, ring, pinky. Here we'll shift up, then we'll shift back, and then our middle finger, and our ring finger, and our pinky, and I would shift up here. And then descending, the first thing we're going to do is shift back into our home position. Pinky, ring, middle, index. Now we shift up for that 5th note on the B string with our pinky. Then we immediately shift back into our home position, the 4th note with the pinky. Then our ring finger, middle, index. Now directly, pinky on the G string, ring finger, middle, index. Now we'll shift up for the 5th note on the D string. Then we'll shift back into our home position, pinky, ring, middle, index. Now we'll shift up for the 5th note on the A string, pinky, shift back into our home position, pinky, ring, middle, index. Shift up with the pinky, shift back with the pinky, ring finger, middle finger, index. So now let's talk about how we practice the cloud exercise. The most important thing I want to show you about how we practice the exercise is the way that we begin. We always begin in the exact same way, by just throwing ourselves into the ocean, choosing any note at random on the fretboard. That means any string, any fret, and any finger on your left hand. because this is the experience that we're going to have as improvisers. There's really very little value in just running across the whole cloud drawing from bottom to top, because you're never going to be doing that when you're improvising. What we are preparing ourselves for is the experience that we're going to have constantly when we're improvising, which is just to be somewhere on the fretboard. And we need to be able to look all around us and see that musical landscape with clarity. We need to be able to see where our musical ideas are located. Those sounds that I want to express, where are those notes and how do I play them? And so this is why we want our cloud practice to begin with a moment of complete disorientation. We actually just want to throw ourselves into the ocean and put ourselves into a situation where we don't yet see the cloud clearly, because that's what allows us to practice this skill of visualizing the musical landscape. And that's what we're trying to learn. And so for this example, I'm just going to choose to start at this note that I have at the first fret of the D string, and I'm going to play this with my index finger. Now the first thing we want to do is to just relax and allow ourselves to be here. We're in no hurry. We don't have to go anywhere. We're already on the musical landscape. We're already in the cloud. And remember that it's helpful to keep your left hand nicely aligned with one finger per fret. That will help you visualize and kind of organize this whole space in your mind. And notice that your index finger is playing at the first fret. And so that's our home position. And so starting from that first fret on the low E string, can you picture those 5 notes on the low E string? The 5 notes on the A string, the 5 notes on the D string where I'm currently playing. But then remember, the G string only has 4 notes, and then the highest 2 strings are normal strings again, so those will have 5 notes. As soon as all that starts to come into focus for you, then you can start to enjoy moving through the cloud. Let's start by ascending. So I'll play with my index finger, then I'll move up to my middle finger, then the ring finger, pinky finger. Now I have to shift up for that 5th note on the D string, and now I'll shift back into my home position on the G string. Then I can start to move up the G string. And remember, the G string only has 4 notes on it. So now after playing with our pinky, we'll just pass directly to the index finger on the B string. Then we can start moving up the B string. Here we will shift up for that 5th note because the B string is a normal string again. Then we'll shift back into our home position on the E string, and so on. Let's look at another example. This time we'll start much higher on the fretboard. I'm going to start at the 10th fret of the A string. I'm going to play this note with my pinky finger. And again, remember, the first thing is to just relax and allow yourself to be here. Remember how helpful it is to keep your left hand nicely aligned with one finger per fret. It really helps you to picture this space surrounding your left hand. And notice which fret is aligned with your index finger. That's your home position. And so can you now start to see those 5 notes coming up the low E string, the 5 notes on the A string and the D string, and then the 4 notes on the G string, and the 5 notes on each of the 2 highest strings again. As soon as all that starts to come into focus, you can start to enjoy moving through your cloud. And so this time, let's start by descending. After playing this note with my pinky, I'm going to move down to my ring finger, then the middle finger, then the index finger. And now I'm about to move to the low E string, which has 5 notes. So the first thing I have to do is shift up to play that 5th note on the E string. Then I have to shift back into my home position, then my ring finger, middle finger, and index finger. And then we can change direction and start to ascend from here, remembering to shift up for that 5th note on all these lower strings, and then shift back into our home position. Middle, ring, pinky, shift up and shift back. Middle, ring, pinky. We'll shift up, then we'll shift back. And then remember, the G string only has 4 notes on it. So after playing with our pinky, we can pass directly to our index on the B string, and so on. And now let's look at one last example, and this time we'll go more deeply into the cloud practice itself, because there's another dimension to the exercise that I want to share with you. So this time I'm going to start at the 6th fret of the G string, and I'm going to play this note with my ring finger. And remember, the first step is always just relax and allow yourself to be here. Remember how helpful it is to keep your left hand nicely aligned with one finger per fret. Notice which fret is aligned to your index finger. That's your home position. And so then, can you begin to see these 5 notes per string on each of these bass strings? And then the G string where we're currently playing, just those 4 notes on the G string, and then the 5 notes per string on each of the 2 highest strings. As soon as you're able to see all of that clearly, we can start to enjoy moving through the cloud. Maybe we'll start ascending from here. So I'll play this note with my pinky. And then because the G string only has 4 notes, now we can pass directly to the B string. And then we can start moving up the B string as well. Here I will shift for that 5th note on the B string. Then I'll shift back into my home position. But the next idea that I want to challenge you to think about in your practicing is to fight for your freedom of movement. So we don't want to just turn this into a mechanical scale review where we just run across the cloud drawing across all 6 strings, practicing those 5 notes per string, 5 notes per string, 5 notes per string, etc. What we want to do is hang out in all these little musical neighborhoods and see what we can learn. This is our musical landscape. This is our fretboard. And we're going to be improvising here for the rest of our lives. So it's impossible to overstate how important it is to get to know this terrain and to feel at home here. So just get these movements into your muscle memory. What does that feel like? Train your left hand to know that it's only on this G string that there's never any shifting. But on all the other strings, we're going to shift up for that 5th note. All this you can learn by just, as I say, fighting for your freedom of movement. Meaning just taking your time and just treating this like your playground. Just enjoying every little square inch of this musical landscape. So this is the cloud exercise, and it's a way that you can learn to see the complete musical landscape going across all 6 strings of your guitar in any one region. And then in the next lesson, I'm going to show you how you can open this concept up so that you can achieve freedom of movement in this other dimension as well, going up the neck of the guitar. And so then we're going to have the ability to move all around the fretboard of the guitar by half steps. And then when we layer on top of that an understanding of harmony, this is what's going to allow you to play the notes of any scale, any chord, any melody you can think of anywhere on the fretboard. So take some time to internalize the cloud concept and make sure you can see this musical landscape going across all 6 strings. And then in the next lesson, I'll show you how you can modify this technique so that we can move freely all around the entire fretboard.